Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland is set to deliver her budget in exactly 1 week, and she's already detailed more than $18 billion in coming spending, plus another $17 billion the feds will put up in loans. One thing the minister has yet to detail is how the government plans to pay for new spending. Freeland has been insistent that she is committed to fiscal anchors detailed in the fall economic statement, which include keeping the deficit below $40.1 billion and limiting deficits in the future to 1% of GDP. Starting in 2026, 2027. But as the feds continue to roll out new spending, will the size of the deficit matter politically? Let's bring in the front bench to talk about that. With me this evening, sitting next to each other, in fact, in Toronto, the Toronto Star's Queen's Park Bureau Chief Rob Benzie. Next to him, Saeed Selvam, Vice President and Practice Lead of Public Affairs at National Public Relations. Former Conservative Deputy Leader Lisa Raitt is with us. She's the Vice Chair and Managing Director of Global Investment Banking at CIBC. And CTV News political analyst and former NDP leader Tom Mulcair is here as well. Hi, everybody. Happy Tuesday. Good to see you.
Hi,
Tom, I'll start with you on that central question around deficits, because you acutely know the politics of whether or not voters care. In 2015, you thought that they would. The Prime Minister took a gamble that they wouldn't. It turned out he was right. Is the context different this time, do you think?
I believe it is different. I think that people are paying a lot of attention to the economy writ large because it's starting to affect them personally. Everything from groceries to the inability to find a place that they can rent decently at a decent price. Yes, it is starting to hit home with people, and they're paying attention to what the government does. I think that you zeroed in correctly on what Trudeau is up to here. He's setting it up to put a big chip on his shoulder with regard to social programs, daring Poilievre to knock it off, putting a big chip on the other shoulder with regard to going after the wealthy. So this is the type of thing that Trudeau loves. He's going to try to say, look, I'm going to take care of your everything. You know, I'll have a social program for everything, from your dental program. I'll pay for your contraceptives. If you don't want that, I'll pay for your kids' early childhood education, and I'll buy them breakfast. I mean, he's got so much. On Sunday, he took care of artificial intelligence. Yesterday, it was the army. I mean, marching on. He's more powerful than a locomotive. So he's trying to set this up, saying, if you let this guy Poilievre in, he's going to take away all this great stuff I've promised you that I might or might not ever deliver. On the other side, he wants to have that big honking fight. I mean, Justin Trudeau leading class warfare. It's great. You got to buy a ticket. So he's trying to tell Canadians, look, I'm here, I'm going to fight for we heard it again today, it was the first time in a while, the middle class and those working hard to join the middle class. We've only heard that so many times in the past 8 years, but I hadn't heard it in at least 6 months. And what are they trying to say? We're going after the rich, we're going to tax them more, we're going to leave you alone. And Poilievre wants to give them a break. That's why he wants to defeat us. So he's trying to set up the next election in those terms. Overall, I think that he's underestimating the extent to which Canadians understand that unemployment is up, productivity is down, their pocketbooks are hurting, and they want somebody who can actually manage. And I think that's a message that Trudeau is simply not able to understand.
I think another piece, Lisa, of the context that may have changed, and I'm interested to see if you think it's the same, is around this idea of going after the wealthy or corporations more largely, because the battle lines are different than I would have imagined even 10 years ago. Insofar as one of the most, interesting political things Pierre Poilievre has done lately is kind of take on corporations in a very specific way through speeches at the Vancouver Board of Trade and I think at the C.D. Howe Institute in Toronto before that. It feels as though there won't be a huge amount of opposition if they do levy another tax on corporations, outside of course, the business community, which will argue that deflates the idea of increasing productivity or growing the economy.
I hope that there's a difference, Vassy, between the Conservatives' understanding that increasing taxes on companies and high wealth individuals is not going to help the economy at the end of the day, quite frankly. I think they get that. I think they know that the path of prosperity isn't through taxation. I think what they say is, we're not going to give you handouts anymore and don't come to us for grants. And that's very much on point with what I've been hearing from Conservatives for 20 years. It makes a lot of sense, and it definitely is something that Pierre Poilievre believes in. He believes in a smaller government, and that's a way of translating smaller government. I am extremely concerned that we're going to see higher taxes on individuals and a special tax levy on corporations. I mean, you think productivity and business investments in the sewer now? Just wait. I mean, people are going to make decisions based upon what's in their pocketbook. And 54% is what currently some people are paying in terms of in terms of income tax levies, that's mentally a really difficult hurdle. If that goes up to 56%, 57%, look, I think we've got a really big issue in the country already when it comes to long-term economic growth. This is not the path to making it all work. I'm actually really concerned now for April 16 and what announcement's going to come out.
I think I totally get, Saeed, the economic pushback to the prospect of those additional taxes. I have the sense, like I think Tom and Lisa both laid out, that the Liberals see no political downside to it.
It's possible, but at the end of the day, I think that the Liberals, as government right now, I think that they know their weaknesses when it comes to some of these announcements that have been made, especially over the past few weeks. They have been trying to roll out these announcements so that each announcement gets the attention that it deserves. They can also generate some positive media for them and some coverage, try and move the conversation away from things like the carbon tax. But with the upcoming budget, especially when we're talking about next week, if they are going to introduce new taxes, they're going to try and cushion it with some other news that can kind of water down some of the bad news, especially for if corporations end up getting taxed or if there's some sort of wealth tax that's couched within this budget overall.
I think, Rob, based on what we've heard so far around spending, it's inevitable. Unless they decide we were joking about the fiscal anchors in the fall economic statement, it's inevitable that they have to raise revenue in another way if they have decided to make all of these spending decisions, which they've freely announced.
Well, exactly, Vassy. I mean, remember, tax revenues are going to be down because the economy is slowing down. We saw in the Ontario budget here that they went from a $200 million surplus forecast to a $9.8 billion deficit. Now, it hasn't seemed to have hurt the Progressive Conservative government here in Ontario having a larger than expected deficit, at least in the initial polling that we've seen. So I'm wondering if Chrystia Freeland goes beyond that $40.1 billion guardrail that she had pledged to not cross, is that really going to hurt them? I mean, Canadians kind of do want their cake and want to be able to eat it too. No one wants cuts to their services. Everyone wants lower taxes, it seems, but no one wants to actually understand that those taxes come at a cost and lower taxes come at a cost. So this is the conundrum for governments. And here at Queen's Park, what happened was the government just said, great, we're just going to continue spending and borrowing.